Hey everybody, Happy New Year. It's 2025, New Year's Day. Oh my goodness, how will 2025 go? I don't know, folks, but I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about games. I always start every year off by telling you about my most anticipated games that will be coming out this year. Fingers crossed. And I got 25 to go over today since it is 2025. And I should say a few things that will not be on this list. First of all, I've got a list of about 40 games that I have already played and done coverage for on the channel. And I'm not going to be talking about any of those because I've already talked about those at great length on the channel. I'm going to be talking about stuff that's new to me. Although, if you would like to hear about those, I think it's 38 games specifically, a little bit later this month, I will be filming my monthly ramble, which is a backer-only video blog that I do for folks who keep the show running on Patreon or over at YouTube as members. It's just $2 a month, and you get to hear me opine on all kinds of topics. In this month's ramble, I will go through that entire list of all the games I've already played, and I'll rank them from least favorite to most favorite. Also, other stuff I'll be doing in that ramble, talking about, I think, if I recall correctly, 30 expansions and new 2.0 reprints of games that are very, very interesting. Again, this 25 I'm about to talk about is all new stuff that I have not really talked about before on the channel. Also, these 25 are the ones I'm most interested in, but I've got another 50 or 60 that I'm looking into, that I'm studying, that I'm reading about. I'll talk about all those in the ramble as well, and I'll be filming that in a couple of weeks, likely while Jen and I are on the road in Ireland, which might signal a huge change for us in this new year. But anyway, enough about me, enough about what's not on this list. Let's start talking about 25 games. Although, actually, before I get to that, there is one more thing I'd like to do. A little shout out to Dr. Bood, who is running a 2024 People's Choice Top Games for Two initiative, which I just think is awesome. There's a link for this down in the show notes. You can go follow it, where he is asking for everybody to submit their nominees for their 5 best games that are for 2 players. Doesn't matter whether they're 2-player only or not. They are trying to come up with the ultimate resource for 2-player gamers. And since that's what I am, me and my wife, and chances are a lot of you really focus on 2-player gaming as well, I figured folks might be interested in this. Again, link down in the show notes. Should be a lot of fun. I'll be putting my votes in for the greatest, and I hope you do too, because the more people are involved, the better this list is going to be. But anyway, enough. Let's start the countdown. I'm doing this, starting with number 25, the one I know the least about, or the one that I'm most on the fence about, and we'll count down to my number 1, the game that I would knock any of you out of the way to ensure is on my shelf before the year is over, right? Okay, let's get going with number 25 on the list, Gatsby, which, this I don't know much about, and if anything, I'm a little nervous because it's designed by Ludovic Maublanc and Bruno Cathala, and I've talked about this many times. As much as I think Bruno Cathala is a brilliant designer, 9 times out of 10 his stuff doesn't work for me because he always tends to throw in just a little bit of knife stabbing for no good reason. Why, Bruno? Why? But it's not Bruno and Ludovic that bring me here. It's not even the subject matter of The Great Gatsby, which, yes, I read it in high school like everybody else. I thought it was a great and worthy work of American fiction, all about, the hollow emptiness of the American dream and all, that's all good stuff. I wonder if any of that will be in here, because the interesting thing about this game from the description is there's no Daisy, there's no Tom, there's no love triangle, apparently we're a couple of completely new characters. What was it? Dorothy Williams and James Miller, and we're social climbers trying to work our way up to get an audience with the Great Gatsby himself. That's actually really cool. I like that idea. The gameplay description is vague. Sounds like there's kind of, sort of like network route connections where we're trying to get influence with other members of, high society at different locations and all of that. This could all be very interesting. I'm not quite sure. Why is this on my list then? One thing, folks, the publisher, Catch Up Games. Oh my God, Catch Up Games has been on fire so hard. Their most recent game that I fell in love with, Castle Combo, made my top 10 of the year. Last year, Far Away was like my wife's like number 3 highest ranked game of the year. And it's not just those 2 most recent ones. I mean, heck, if we actually go check them out, I mean, The Loop, one of the greatest co-op games of all time. Dinosaur Island Raw and Right. Paper Tales was really good too. I never played Q*berts, but anyway, Catch Up Games is fast rising in the ranks of my favorite publishers of all time. And I believe I put them in my top 10 favorite hottest publishers of the day when we did that on the R&R last year. And so whatever they're doing, I've got to check out. And, hey, if they're working with world famous designers, if they're doing something new and interesting with subject matter we haven't seen before, that's all cool too. So that's what puts Gatsby at my number 25 of the year most anticipated game. It doesn't come in higher because literally because of my nerves and because there's no pictures. Although, I mean, I really do like this box art. I mean, that is very, very era appropriate and very evocative and all that. Look at those flappers dancing in the background. But time will tell. I just have supreme confidence these days in catch-up games, and you should too. That's why Gatsby is number 25 on the list. Then we go to number 24, Howl. Now this is on the list because it's from designer/artist Louis Brae, who you may know from his last game that he put out that Jen and I really enjoyed a lot, Keep the Heroes Out. That was a cooperative game where we were dungeon monsters trying to defend our dungeon from heroes. And it was a great game. And oh man, I love Lewis's art so much. Well, he's going to be back in 2025 with a new cooperative game where we all are members of a wolf pack. And again, his art. Love his art so much. And it's basically an adventure game where we are exploring the wilderness as members of a wolf pack, trying to take care of the cubs and all of that, and going to different locations and choosing what we're going to interact with. If you came to this area and you were a wolf, would you deal with the owl? Would you try to go snipe some eggs? Or are you going to run afoul of a grizzly? Well, there's going to be a bunch of different cards that will take you to different actions and adventures, depending on what you choose as you explore. Here's obviously a rough prototype. Man, I love Lewis's art even in prototype form. Oh man, that just looks so cool to move around in. And here's an example of, it's going to be a big old box full of areas that you explore. So, I love Lewis's art. I love his cooperative design sensibilities, and I love the subject matter of, being a wolf, dealing with wolfy pack type things, and working cooperatively because we're all members of a pack. So all that is very, very neat. My only hesitation, the thing that keeps it from being higher on the list is apparently after we make our choice, we have to roll dice to see if we succeed. And I'm never a fan of roll to resolve. But I generally am more accepting of it in a cooperative game, and Lewis has earned my trust because his previous game, Keep the Heroes Out, was phenomenal. And so I am very excited about number 24 on the list, Howl, where we explore an ever-changing world and raise a pack of wolves. Okay, now what's next? 23. Oh boy. Popcorn. From publisher Yellow, new designer I do not really know, Victor Salmon. I think he's just getting started. I'll be honest, this is on my list. Well, Yellow, I'm always up to see what they do. They've got great development heads, and whoever is running that place, they generally make very, very good decisions. They're really nicely put together games, but it's not that. It's the subject matter. We pair the right films with the right guest to score popcorn. That's actually a terrible log line. What is this game? This is an economic business simulation where we're running 80s era movie theaters. So this is all about nostalgia for me in the biggest, baddest way. Actually, I just watched Kevin Smith's 4:30 movie a couple of weeks ago, and oh man, talk about memory lane. I was born in 69, grew up in the 70s and 80s, jumping from theater to theater. So a game where we are actually running a movie theater. Let's see, this is obviously a shot taken from somewhere. I can zoom in though. Booking all the films, and it looks like there's a lot of fun, references. A movie called Rosebud with the Glass Globe. Just as a diehard movie fan aficionado myself, I'm sure I'm gonna love all the little in jokes for there. But then let's see, where is a place player board, or the Godmother, or Elite Pilot. But anyway, the important thing is we've got 3 screens that we're running. We're trying to attract different audience members off the street to come in and get the right audience members matched to the right films. Oh my God, how does this game not already exist? This seems like perfect Euro business simulation fodder. And that plus the fact that it just speaks to me on such a primal level makes me very, very excited for Popcorn. Again, not much detail, just that one picture, although that one picture alone is enough to pull me in. I've got high hopes for this. I don't know enough yet. So Popcorn comes in at number 23, but I am stoked, folks. Let's see. Then we move on to number 22, Skara Brae. This is the latest from Garphill Games. And honestly, I don't know if this would have made my short list for most anticipated. Even though I'm always interested in seeing what Garphill and Shem Phillips comes up with. And I love it when he works with, I believe, his sibling artist brother, Sam Phillips. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the Miko art that we normally see on Garphill Games too, but I love Sam Phillips' art too, for the Circadians games and all that. But anyway, this one is set 5,000 years ago on Orkney Island, northern Scotland. And the thing that really gets me excited about this is the fact that just last month I played Shem's last design. What do you call it? Raiders of the North Sea Redux. Or not Raiders, Shipwrights of the North Sea Redux. And that game made my top 10 games of the year. It was so good. And I raved about how it signaled for me a kind of return to an earlier Garphill where things weren't quite so complex. Don't get me wrong, the West Kingdom games and the South Tigers games, they are amazing works of board game art. But they're heavy and they're long. I don't know how much of that is an influence of Shem's frequent design partner, Sam McDonald. But when Shem decided to revisit Shipwrights of the North Sea without Sam, he made a game that was just about flawless for me and Jen because it didn't go so heavy, so deep, so crunchy. And here he comes along with Skara Brae. And from what I've seen, because this was on Kickstarter last year, I didn't cover it, but a lot of other channels did. As always, Meeple University did a great little job teaching how to play the game, and it really sold me on the idea of this is a game. It's a clever worker placement game where cards that we're drafting from a central board, almost King Domino style, are the workers that we use to deploy on our own little, primitive Scotland or Highlands villages. But the important thing is, most everything about this game is about gathering and using resources. And we've got this very, very cool system for resource storage, where the more resources we accrue to complete whatever our objectives are, the more we create waste. And we have to deal with that in the way that these ancient Scots did, which is they basically turned it into building material, kind of like a prehistoric recycling system, which is awesome. And so they've taken that idea and brought it into, well, what I'm assuming is going to be another fantastic design from Shem. And again, if, Shipwrights of the North Sea is anything to go by, well, I am very, very stoked for this. Like I said, I'm always up for checking out Garphill, but I've rarely been more excited about their works than I have been about number 22 most anticipated game, Skara Brae. Okay, then we go on to 21, Forestry. From a relatively new publisher, Pink Troubadour. What were their games? Did they do, Galileo Galilei, which made my wife's top 10 of the year and just missed my top 10. And I was also really impressed by Dirt and Glory. And so, they had a good start as a new publisher from the Czech Republic in 2024. And what does 2025 bring? Forestry, which I am very, very interested in. Let's see, who is the designer? Michael Peach? Michael. He did Witchdom. Witchdom was actually a pretty good game I played last year too, so that's cool. But anyway, this game is about us being, forest rangers, stewards of a sustainable forest management. I love that subject matter. But what's interesting about this game to me is the dual worker system that they promise, where I split my time controlling 2 different characters, and they're listed here. The harvester, who moves through the forest, felling trees and meeting contract demands, replanting planting saplings, kind of, maintaining the ecosystem, and the manager who oversees resource collection, utilizes sawmills and all that. So this is a game that is interesting to me about, eco-conscious, forestry. We're not forest rangers. We are basically, we're trying to be forest stewards. Basically, I love the story of a game where we are trying to be more simpatico with nature, trying to do what we need to do for our own species. Wood is an incredibly important resource in our modern day lives, but we don't have to completely destroy forests or clear cut or ruin the world to do it. There are smarter ways to do it, and that's what this game is about. I mean, it literally wears on its flies a flag that it is an educational game about environmental sustainable development. So I'm totally on board for that. And then on top of that, I really like the idea from a gameplay perspective of having two different characters that I'm having to balance control of. Kind of reminds me of Stefan Feld's Aquasphere, which I always thought was very cool. You had the scientist and the engineer both almost playing different games but having to work in synergy. So I'm expecting good stuff here too. Because I want more games that tell, in 2025, a positive story about how we can work in unison, in sync with nature, rather than just, drill baby drilling. So I have high hopes for number 21, Forestry. Then we've got number 20. Moon Colony Bloodbath. Oh, I just love that title so much. And I'm very excited for this new... Interesting, from reading the description, it says it's an engine building, engine losing tableau game, but to me it kind of sounds like a deck builder, and it's from designer Donald X. Vaccarino, one of the most important designers of the last 20 years since he gave us Dominion, and a bunch of other really great designs too, but man, Dominion is a tough act to follow. But, so it's great to see Donald back doing some of the stuff that I've loved in a lot of his games, like, what are they called? The twist cards, where every time you play, there's going to be a couple of twists that change the feel of the game from game to game. I love the ideas I've seen in his games over the years, and I love to see something new from him. I love the subject matter of this kind of retro 50s, hey, we're running a moon base, and, we're just up here doing science-y type stuff, but when, everything is falling apart. This is not, I imagine there's aliens, although from the description it's more just bad bureaucracy that's going to lead to the huge losses of this moon base. But we are trying our best to run things, and it's a communal deck builder because there is a deck of cards that we're going to draw a card from that everybody responds to every round, saying what's going to happen. And there's work we can do in this deck, and then there's also, every time you play, it's going to be a different combination of disasters. And once we've seen what those disasters are, we're going to keep going through that deck, and that disaster will keep hitting us over and over again. And plus there's rule twist cards that will change the game from game to game as well. And we are communally building the deck. We're trying to throw more good cards into that deck to counteract the bad cards as we try to survive the Moon Colony Bloodbath. Obviously this game is going to have a real sense of humor to it and all of that. So I'm excited. It's great to see Donald X. Vaccarino back doing something other than Dominion expansions. And I've played a few other games over the years that had this idea of communal deck building, and I've always thought it was a phenomenal idea. So cannot wait to check out number 20, the Moon Colony Bloodbath. All right, okay. Then let's go on to number 19, Misfit Heroes. This is from Alderac, AEG, Alderac Entertainment, and designer Phil Walker Harding. So that draws my attention. But more importantly, this is AEG using the, the card crafting system, where every time you play, you get these cards and you that are sleeved, and you slot different transparent tiles into them so the cards change every game. I love that. And, that has been a design idea that was, created and championed by John D. Clare. And it's interesting now to see Alderac having another designer other than John D. Clare doing something with it. And Phil Walker Harding, one of the all-time greats, praise be, I say that for Ruel. This one is, what is it? Earth has kind of done some kind of dimensional merge with a planet called Absurdia, where magical beasts live among ordinary people. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's kind of a modern day, smashed together with fantasy silliness and whatnot. And it's kind of an adventure game with deck construction and hand management and card combo chaining and all that. But the big thing is, this is the only picture, unfortunately, and it doesn't really show the cards. You can, apparently, these are the environments you're interacting with, but you can see, here's a player's card over there, and you can see this big old red-bearded dude, next time you play, he might have different things slotted in there, because again, I love that idea of, variable cards. Every time you play, they're going to have different combinations. Apparently, this one, you build the cards and make unique deck of cards before you start playing, so I don't know if we do much card crafting mid-game. There's just not that much information, but I am here for AEG. They almost never let me down. I'm here for Phil Walker Harding. He almost never lets me down. And I am here for slotting transparent cards together into sleeves to make new cards by crafting character cards with clever card play for cool combos to claim influence. Hey, don't mind some alliteration while we're at it too. Very nice. And that is number 19, Misfit Heroes. Then we got 18. Oh, Covenant. This is a new game from Devir, and Devir is going to have several games coming out in 2025, and of all of them, the one I want the most is Covenant. Why? The designer, Jermaine P. Milan. Jermaine is really the designer who put Devir on the map in a big way a few years ago with Bitoku. And Bitoku was amazing. Bitoku is one of Jermaine's best designs, and I'm going to credit that in part to Devir. Now, last year, Jermaine put out Men Nefer, which just missed my top 10 of the year. Men Nefer is his greatest design to date I've ever seen, although I did have a couple little things I would have loved to tweak about it. But anyway, he's now back, baby, in the loving embrace of Devir, and he is bringing out a new game. And what is it? No pictures, unfortunately, but I don't need them. I like the cover art. Apparently, we are dwarves trying to develop our underground kingdom, digging deeper, mining for stuff, using that to make stuff, Euro-y stuff, But that's all I need to know. You had me at Devir teaming up with German Milan. What is it? Plays over 3 ages. During turns, will assign dwarves. Right. It sounds like worker replacement stuff. The description doesn't really give me much to go on, but there's one other thing that pulls me in. I mentioned last year, German's Men Nefer was an amazing design. My only complaint about it was too long. I love the description here that says, the playing time is 25 to 90 minutes. So I'm sure the 25 minutes is for a solo game, which means a 2-player game is probably an hour. Yes! Bitoku was crazy long. Men Nefer was even longer. Germain is giving me what I want. All the good Euro-y goodness that I know he's capable of in a tight, fast-playing package. Yes, Covenant, I am very excited. The art looks nice from the cover, but that's what I got, folks. That's what brings it in at number 18. And I'll be talking about the other Devir games in the ramble that I'll record halfway through the month, because I want to wait. I want to see. Normally in the past, I've done the ramble immediately the same day, and I made it available to my backers, but I'm waiting a couple weeks this time, because almost always a week after the new year, new games start popping up that weren't announced, and I end up missing those. So don't worry, backers of the show, I'll be getting to you in the middle of the month when Jen and I are in Ireland. Anyway, though, that was Covenant. Number 17 is The Peak Team. This I got mixed up earlier when I said Forestry was about park rangers, and when obviously we're forest clear cutters, but again, working in conjunction. This is the Wildlife Rangers, the Forest Ranger game, which I am excited about because, hey, I am always up for a new design from Scott Alms. And you don't see Scott doing cooperative games very much. Although one of my favorite co-op games of all time, Tiny Epic Defenders, was from Scott. And and the man does amazing co-op experiences. Wait until you get a chance to try Tiny Epic Cthulhu or Tiny Epic Game of Thrones, which is coming out this year in the co-op mode. Amazing. So, Scott Alms doing co-op gameplay? Yes, please. These days, more and more, it seems like he really focuses on solo gaming, which he's amazing at too. But anyway, anyway, so what is it? Well, it's from publisher Matago. Again, no pictures other than the admittedly very pretty box art. I really do like the look of that. Seems very evocative. What's interesting about the game from a gameplay point of view is it is cooperative. It doesn't say it in the list of that there's limited communication. They don't come around and say, but I'm kind of inferring it from this description where they talk about, we are trying to complete missions, in this forest while, to ensure the well-being of different species in our wildlife reserve while protecting them from potential threats. I mean, we've had a lot of these nature preserves. I mean, last year, we had Ark Nova has, had an explosion of games covering this topic, but most of the time we're the middle managers building the thing. Here, we're boots on the ground maintaining the area. So I like the new focus on a different subject matter or a different take on a very popular subject matter that I like a lot. But what's most interesting is it talks about reverse drafting mechanism, where I've got a hand of cards that will allow us to allow us to be able to travel around and achieve whatever we need to achieve to make sure everything's going good in this nature reserve. But I don't play them on myself. I play them on you, where players assign their cards to others, and then rangers acquire the tools they need to explore the mountain via different paths and transportation systems. I love that. I'm hoping it's one of those things where I can't actually tell you what I've got, so we have some limited communication. But even if it's not there, I expect it's going to be very interesting because again, Scott Alms does not disappoint, especially when he's doing co-op. So that's always a reason to celebrate, and that's why I am ranking the peak team at number 17, most anticipated. Then we've got number 16, Burgle Brothers 3 Future Flip. Burgle Brothers 1 and 2 are two of the most popular co-op games out there with such good reason. They were basically kind of Ocean's 11 heist games working cooperatively where we were sneaking around. In the first game, it was just like for generic locations. In the second game, it was casinos. Now, for some reason, we're in the future, and so we're it's a corporate heist, but in a future cyber tech dystopia, which means there's going to be all kinds of new security measures we have to overcome, which is very, very interesting. But what's really pulled me in, other than the fact that, hey, the first two Burgle Brothers are phenomenal. They're just absolutely great. And this one sounds like it could be the best for the new elements that are added. Now we can put on disguises because the thing is, we're breaking into these places while they're open for business, which you kind of saw a little bit in Burgle Brothers 2. But now it seems like, in addition to the guards we're trying to avoid and, anticipate where they're going to go and stay one step ahead of them while dealing with security measures to pull off our heist and all of that. There are now employees walking around that we also have to deal with. So how do we deal with them? Disguises. That is so cool in and of itself that now we can disguise ourselves, which means we sacrifice action points, but we can move around undetected. The role-playing aspect of that sounds very fun, but they're just more than just another, the employees, more than just another obstacle or thing to avoid. We can actually use them as a resource because, where did it talk about it? We must effectively manipulate the corporate workers to gain info and even frame them when things go bad. If we're about to get caught, we can actually trick the security into thinking the employees are the heist crew instead of us. So again, the Burgle Brothers 1 and 2 are both all-time great. So, and I'm expecting this one is going to be even better. So everybody should be excited about Burgle Brothers 3 Future Flip, which is number 16. Yes, and it's number 16, folks. Can you see how great 2025 is potentially going to be? If this is number 16, let's move on to number 15, Dungeons & Dragons Builders of Baldur's Gate. Now, there were three things. Baldur's Gate and Dungeons & Dragons, yeah, I love high fantasy, and, Lords of Waterdeep is a great gateway game and all of that, but what really pulled me in is publisher WizKids, who have just been on such an unbroken string of amazing designs for the last few years. I mean, heck, here's Free Radicals, permanently affixed to my wall. I love it so much. So I'm always up for, WizKids doing some new Euro gaming goodness, because they have just been on an unbroken streak for a while now. But then you have Matt Dunstan Is one half of one of my favorite design duos of all time, Dunstan and Gilbert. But Matt has done a lot of great designs, on his own and with other people. And this is a game where we are building up Baldur's Gate. And let's see, actually, let me find the pictures. Apparently, the game is going to come with cool miniatures, so we actually see the city building up in 3D, not just 2D, with the tile laying of the buildings we're building, and we mark that there are buildings with our own little cubes and whatnot. But then we actually have 3 cool 3D miniatures as well. That's nice. But that's not the main thing. The main thing is, thank you, WizKids, for putting up pictures of the special powers we can get depending on what builder faction we're controlling, what different buildings do when we build them, what different kinds of objective cards there are. Just reading through all of these, and seeing what time. This game is going to be made for me and Jen. Again, Matt Dunstan does not disappoint, and what's it? WizKids does not disappoint. So, Dungeons & Dragons Builders of Baldur's Gate comes in for me at number 15, most anticipated. Then we go on to number 14, Click-a-Tree. Now, this... you can actually check a run-through of this on the channel right now. Shay covered it, and I'm so jealous because I wanted to cover it, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to get my copy of it when Jen and I were south of the border in Mexico. And now, as it turns out, I could have gotten my copy of it because we had to about face and come back early so we could go to Ireland. I am jealous of my own co-worker, Shay, who did a phenomenal run-through of this. Just put it up a couple of days ago. It is from designer Uwe Rosenberg and publisher Skellig Games. And folks, I've seen it in action. I know it's going to be fantastic. This is a new Uwe. We met this new Uwe Rosenberg a couple of years ago when he put out the Bat game. Ottawa? No, that's Canada. That's going to drive me nuts. I got to look it up now. All right. Ottawa. It is. A-T, but not Ottawa. Ottawa, or I think it was how it was pronounced. Anyway, Ottawa came out in 2022, and it was a very, very cool game about agricultural techniques being deployed in Africa today, where, things are done very, very differently. That game was about working simpatico with the bats to be able to pollinate fruit trees. This is a game about farming practices in Ghana, where they are smartly growing because of climate change and temperatures rising. The farmers are realizing their best way to go is to plant their fruit under trees, amongst the roots, so that they are shaded by the heat of the day, because that is becoming a bigger problem for them every year as climate change continues to get worse. So anyway. This type of agriculture is what is being represented in this very, very cool tile drafting game, and it's all about entwined drafting. I love that. Where, hey, if I pay these nuts, I get these 2 tiles. If I pay this eggplant, I get these 2 tiles, and then I decide how am I expanding. But the other thing is, each player has a card with a whole bunch of objectives on it. And the more of these objectives we complete, trying to build in certain ways, the more space we open up to be able to store more fruit. Really simple, clean, elegant system that just looks like so much fun to play. And this, again, is Uwe Rosenberg trying to prove games can make the world a better place. They can introduce us to new ways of thinking and open our eyes to problems that our fellow man is having to deal with. And not for nothing, Uwe and the publisher are putting their money where their mouth is. Go watch the Click-a-Tree run-through that Shay did and watch his final thoughts. Shay talks about the initiative that Uwe and Skellig and other board game publishers are pursuing right now to try to make the world a better place. And it makes me so happy. And now, all that aside, Click-a-Tree looks like it's a lot of fun, and it should, because it's from Uwe Rosenberg, and I'm very, very keen on giving it a go myself, and I'm so jealous that if I'd known all of our plans were going to shift, it would have been me covering it instead of Shay. So you got lucky this time, Parker. We'll see what happens next. But anyway, folks, that is number 14 on my list, the most anticipated, Click-a-Tree. Okay, then number 13, Point Galaxy, the latest from Molly Johnson, Robert Melvin, and Sean Stankiewicz. The creative force behind Flat Out Games. And now this is a sequel to probably their biggest hit yet, Point Salad. Although honestly, Point Salad came out, it was a super smart, clever, fast-playing little gateway game about drafting cards to basically make a salad. Point Salad. They follow that up with Point City, which, if I'm trying to remember, did Point City make my top 10 of 2023? It might have. Point City was that good. But now this is the third in their Point series. They went from making salads to making cities to now making entire galaxies. And it seems like they're revisiting the fundamental card drafting functionality of the original Point Salad, which is fine, but making it not quite so light and gateway-ish, but adding a little bit more new features like trying to build in straights and stuff like that. With the same ideas of having a bunch of different objectives we're chasing after. Anyway, Point Salad was a brilliant design. And Point City, its sequel, made my top 10 of the year, if I recall correctly. So I'm expecting the third in their Point series to be phenomenal as well, which is why Point Galaxy comes in at number 13. And if all goes to plan, folks, you'll be seeing me filming this thing in the new year. Although it might be Kimberly, I'm not sure. But anyway, regardless, I'm excited, independent of that. Let's move on to number 12. Keyside. This is very, very cool. I have, Keyflower is still in my top 10 favorite games of all time, and I've always enjoyed all the Key games. I'm really bummed. I missed one a couple of years ago, and I probably missed it forever now because, folks, don't sleep on this. Designer publisher Richard Brees of R&D Games tends not to reprint his Key games. They come out, there's a small print run. They're amazing, awesome, best of all time designs, and then they just fade into the background because they never get reprinted, and then they start commanding huge prices. I mean, look how much Key Market was going for. It would go for $100 because they just become impossible to get. So don't sleep on Keyside, especially because Richard is teaming up with the co-designer Dave Turczi, one of the hottest designers working today with good reason. So that's all I need to know. This is a must get for me because I am not. What was the one I missed? It's driving me nuts. So I do need to track down. Oh, no, I did get Keeper. Oh, wasn't it like a sequel to Keeper? Oh, now I got to sort by date. All right, Keyside, then there's some Keyflower, the Glade. I missed the Glade, too. Oh, Keeper at Sea. Yeah, I missed Keeper at Sea, which drives you nuts. Although Key Flow was fantastic. I was very happy about that. But anyway, the Key series always delivers. And, teaming up with, again, one of the hottest designers of the day, Dave Turczi, yeah, this is a must get. Just missed my top 10 because I don't know much about it. That's not fair. I could watch Paul Grogan's excellent tutorial and playthrough. I just didn't because I know I don't need to. Look, I was talking about it in 24 back when I was doing my weekly recap, how excited I was, and it's going to be here this year, folks. Do not miss number 12, Keyside. Oh, and while you're at it, go watch my recap show. This was really cool where I was filming while Jen was paddling and I was worried about drowning and stuff. Oh, that was a fun time. Anyway, I love that show. That was number 12, Keyside. Now let's go on to number 11, Severton. From publisher Albee, who made a big splash for me last year with Tea Garden, which I thought was absolutely phenomenal. And what was their other game? Oh, that was Witchdom, right? I'm pretty sure those were both phenomenal games. Albee's been around for a while, and they're really starting to make a name for themselves. So I'm interested because I've such a recent, positive experience with their other games last year. But that's not it, folks. This is number 11 because of the designer, Vlaada Chvátil. I had kind of thought Vlaada had retired. And he was just becoming a full-time, head of the company of Czech Games Edition. He wasn't going to be seeing any more designs from him. And he was going to rest on his laurels because his laurels are amazing. And of course, he has earned a break. But he's back. Although I don't understand, why is Albee publishing this instead of Czech Games Edition? I don't know. I don't care. This is Vlaada Chvátil doing a cooperative game. That is unusual for the man. I don't know, maybe the bug with, the really excellent co-op play of Codenames. I don't know. But it's an old school cooperative. I don't know what old school cooperative means either. Does that mean pandemic style? I mean, what's prior? What's more old school than pandemic? I'm not sure. I don't know what this means. But it's set in the world of Rapid Arrows, a Czech comic and novel series that's set in 1930s Czechoslovakia, inspired by mysterious atmosphere of old Prague. So, sounds interesting. It basically... it's interesting. There are no pictures, no nothing here, but I did a Google search and I did find a press release that had a teaser video that just showed some art. And honestly, it looks like Stranger Things set in 1930s Prague. Because it's about kids on bikes having adventures. I don't know if there's any supernatural elements. I don't really know anything about the Rapid Arrows, but we're a group of friends, young school-age children, uncovering the secrets of Severton, the old neighborhood somewhere in Prague, ruled by a ruthless group of vaunts, progress through various scenarios, different challenges lying ahead of you, uncover the movement of Vaunt patrols and try to avoid them. Is that some shades of Burgle Brothers? I don't know. Sneak your way around them, talk your way out of trouble, or simply use your fist to get the upper hand. I don't know, folks. You had me at Vlada Shevadl, returning to game design, doing an old school cooperative game. If there was anything more, if there was pictures of the game, or just a little bit more description of the gameplay, this would have pushed into my top 10 most anticipated. It's so vague. It's interesting. The teaser trailer just shows a couple of pieces of art and, the kids, facing down a group of street ruffians, and then says more information coming in May of 2025. So we're gonna have to wait a while before we learn more about Severton, but I'm here telling you right now, folks, this is high on my must check out list, because we're lucky that Vlada is coming back. Yeah, baby. But now let's get to my top 10 most anticipated. Yeah, starting with Unstoppable from Renegade Studio and designer John D. Clare. Now, I talked about earlier how much I love John D. Clare's card crafting system, introduced in Mystic Vale, and then we got Edge of Darkness, and he's done a bunch of other games with it since then. This is his latest, but he's not doing it with AEG. He's doing it with Renegade Game Studios, which is interesting in and of itself. And this is a 1 or 2 player only cooperative game where we are dealing with, I guess it's kind of futuristic, cyberpunky issue bad guys and whatnot. On the city planet of Ceres 2, every alleyway invites quick and quiet death. All I know is I love card crafting, and I love John D. Clare Designs, and I love him doing a co-op game for a change. 2024 was actually a fairly weak year for co-ops. We had a few, none of them made it into my top 10. There's a few I still need to play. It's looking like 2025 might be the year of co-ops, where co-ops might be rebounding, and Unstoppable is one of them. It's a roguelike momentum deck builder, where we're building our decks, and you can kind of, if you see the cards here, they have these slots that when you slide more cards together with them, they start taking on new properties. You see them on the bad guys we fight, on the upgrades we get, and all of that. Now, there is an excellent run through. If you want to see this game in action right now, head over to Board Game Geek, head to the video section, and then scroll down, skip all this other stuff, and go right to my good buddy, Ruel Gaviola, who basically did a Rahdo runs through style video on his own channel.
Hi friends, I'm looking at
Ruel. And he did a great job. I watched the first 10 minutes of this just to see these things starting to slot together, and I think it's going to be great. Ruel, you did a fantastic job running through it. Well, I guess it was crowdfunding last year. And so I am excited about number 10, most anticipated game for all those reasons, Unstoppable. Okay. Then we go on to number 9, Citizens of the Spark. And now I know, I feel like I have talked about Citizens of the Spark on the channel quite a few times. I think it was originally supposed to come out in 2024, but it ended up getting pushed to 2025. Apologies if I am repeating myself, but I just continue to be so excited for this. It is the triumphant return of Phil Dewberry. Although actually that's not true. Last year, 2024, he had another game that came out that was very, very good. Snowcrest was great. And so that just whetted my appetite for more Dewberry. And it seems like Citizens of the Spark is a game he has been working on for years. There's a bunch of videos because it crowdfunded last year, so you can check out Amy and Maggie talking about it. Or I think Maple University covered it. I don't remember. I honestly, I haven't looked down too much because I don't particularly care. Here's what I know of the game, is there's a bunch of cards, and every time you play, you're going to get a different combination. I think you take 8 of them and shuffle them all together, so it's going to be a different feeling of the warrior plus the soldier plus the scientist plus the poet, as opposed to the tyrant plus the pupil plus the recruiter plus the scout. Every time you play, you're going to get different combinations, but what we're doing is we shuffle them up, and then we get this entwined drafting game. I love entwined drafting, where I've got to always pick a pair of two characters. These two or these two or these two, and I really want that character, but I don't want the one they're paired with, or maybe they're really both great for me. But then I take them and I add them to my growing collection of the characters. And the thing is, the more you collect a given type of character, the more powerful that character becomes. So you really want to focus. But that means you might have to draft them with a card you don't care about that isn't so strong for you, or you might branch out and dabble in a lot of characters, or really focus on a few. I love entwined drafting. The art on these cards looks phenomenal, and it seems like everybody who covered it last year really was very, very keen on it. So I am excited. It is number 9, Citizens of the Spark. Okay. Then we go on to number 8, Everdell Duo. Folks, did I say co-op is making a comeback? Yes. Everdell, as a solo or 2-player only game that you can play competitively, or you can play cooperatively. That's what I'm here for. I want a co-op Everdell. Although this really feels quite a bit different. It's no longer a worker placement game. Instead, there's this sun and moon token that are moving along, telling us what we have access to when we want to draft. And that is not a very high-res picture, so it won't get any closer. So let me know. So, this moon and this sun move along, and, where they are indicates what I can grab and add to my own area. But these are Everdell-ish type cards, although they're all little mini cards, which I'm obviously, I love little tiny cards, make my hands feel gigantic. I do have gigantic hands, but, all that's very, very nice. Everdell, the worker placement of Everdell is always whatever, it's fine. It was those cards and the way they combo together and do all kinds of cool stuff. And you can just see from these cards, yeah, they're going to have cool combo-y fun stuff on them. But what's important is, can we zoom in on this picture? Nope, all right, there's a little bit better, but still not very, I want to zoom in and show you, but c'est la vie. There we go. Nope, none of these pictures are very high res for some reason. So that's as close as I can get. But I am here to be able to play cooperative Everdell with my wife. Everdell, for me, got killed last year. First by Farshore, and then by Wondrous Creatures. Will Everdell co-op bring me back? I hope so. It's number 8 on my anticipated list. Okay, then we got number 7, Furnace Duel, a 2-player only, although I wouldn't be surprised if they throw a solo mode in. Furnace had a great solo mode, but a 2-player version of Furnace. Furnace, one of the best designs of the last decade. So perfect, so pure. It was I think it was like my number 1 or my number 2 or my number 3 the year it came out, and so now they're coming out with a 2-player version. That really, half of the game is still the same. We're trying to build, draft through a very fast, smart, almost raw-esque auction, where everybody can see what everybody can bid, and we're trying to grab the right buildings for our infrastructure. You can see, hey, here's a bunch of buildings that we're bidding on right there, and somebody bid 2, and somebody else bid 1, and various and sundry things. Or there's the purple and the orange player. But in the original, what made Furnace so brilliant? Well, not only was the engine building of getting these cards and then running your engine and doing goods conversion, it was all very satisfying and fun. But the fact that sometimes you made a bid on something because you want to lose, because you wanted to get the one-time benefit, the consolation prize for losing. That was such a brilliant idea. And Furnace, especially with the Interbellum expansion, still one of the all-time greats. So now they've brought that idea back, but losing doesn't give you a benefit on the card. It instead gets you a benefit on the map. You can see these cards are lined up with different stations on the map, and now we've got this whole other game that we're doing with, I don't know, route movement or something like that. It looks like the game comes with different maps and all of that. So I'm excited, folks. I am very excited. So much so that it comes in at number 7, Furnace Duel. Okay, then we go on to number 6, Rebuilding Chicago. Unfortunately, no pictures, I don't think. Just me talking about it in another recap from a couple of years ago or last year. But I'll just show you the box art. And this is about rebuilding Chicago after the Great Fire of 19, whatever it was. They say in the description, if I recall correctly. Of 1871, the Great Fire of 1871. So we're rebuilding Chicago. And I assume this is using, for the most part, the same polyomino dual layer, double-decker tiling. You build the foundations of your neighborhoods, and then you put the tiles on top of them that made Rebuilding Seattle one of the greatest tile laying games of all time. This is from the same designer, same publisher, WizKids. I already talked about how excited I am for them. And so this is a sequel, and it promises to add add new elements that were not in Rebuilding Seattle, like subway tiles and all that. But the most important thing is still here, that on your turn you're either drafting things or you're triggering events that everybody engages in. And I want to see new events. I want to see new types of buildings. I just want to see more Rebuilding Seattle in a new scenario, because Rebuilding Seattle, go watch my run through, one of the greatest all-time tile laying games, period. It was another top 10er the year it came out. So, Rebuilding Chicago, I have high hopes. It comes in at number 6. Then we've got number 5, Chichen Itza, from my favorite designer of all time, Stefan Feld. And, this is the latest in the, the City Game series from publisher Queen Games. And I've talked about that at great length. If you want to hear my thoughts about the City series, and for people who might say, they're too expensive, go watch my final thoughts for Nassau. I just put it up in December. I have strong feelings about that because, hey, you know what, folks? It turns out using green sustainable production methodology outside of China is expensive. And I personally am a strong believer in trying to come up with new production methodology that doesn't harm the planet, just to keep things as cheap as possible for consumers. Sometimes it's okay to pay a little bit more to give back to the planet. That's why one of the things I love about Queen Games and their Stefan Feld City series, all this green production methodology they do. And again, I talked about specifics in my Nassau video, but putting all of that aside, why else am I excited? Because this is not Stefan Feld doing another, revamp of one of his classic designs. This, like Marrakesh and Kathmandu, is a completely new design. And like Kathmandu and Civolution, this is a new design that if you looked at, you would think, this is not a game from Stefan Feld. That's Tom Slicks did a run through of it. I watched a few minutes of it just to see. This is a game where there are monsters. This is a game set in the myth of what is it? Is it? I don't want to get it wrong. Is it the ancient Incas? No, it's the Mayan Empire. The myth and traditions of the Maya Empire are this is basically a fantasy monster fighting game using Mayan myth as. I'm just gonna go back to that video. As we are doing Stefan Feldy type stuff, the normal stuff you expect from him, interesting action selection mechanisms, that are indirectly interactive with other players, to basically send out our troops and fight all the scary mythical creatures that are threatening to overrun Chichen Itza. That's really cool. This is, of course, a prototype. I don't know what the final game will look like, but what really got me excited was when Tom started describing here. Although, honestly, I didn't need to watch, but I was just curious. Started describing how this action selection board works. Let's see. Yeah, he zoomed in there a bit. There it is. So, when this board is set up, you've got all the different actions you can do, and you put these random cost tiles. You can't quite see it, but that's a 6, that's a 4, that's a 2, that's a 7. And so, like his first move, he said, okay, you know what? I want to go over here, and I want to grab these objective cards first, because as the first player to do it, it'll only cost me 1 coin. The next player to do it, they don't get it for 1 coin. Looking over here, they have to pay 7. So the costs are variable for all these different actions based on how these things get laid out. I think that's brilliant. It's such a cool, fun little idea. Pure Feld. Simple elegance that leads to deep, challenging, compromise-laden decisions, and I love. So, I'm excited, and I've never seen Stefan Feld do a fighting monsters game before, so that's interesting. Yeah, we've had Nassau. We did a little bit of fighting there, I guess, and I guess there was Oracles of Delphi, but this is a dudes on a map game where we're not fighting each other, but we're trying to save Chichen Itza from the invading monster. So that's cool, that's interesting, that's different, and that's why Chichen Itza makes my number 5 on the list. Then we've got number 4, El Paso. Great Western Trail, El Paso. Folks, I have tried all 3 Great Western Trails that have come out. I've brought them in, and they've sent them right back out, because as brilliant as Alexander Pfister's Great Western Trail design system is, one of the greatest, most cool hidden rondels of all time, my 2 problems with all the Great Western Trails is, 1, they're very, very long, and 2, they have a little bit of passive-aggressive backstabbiness where, I know what you need to do, so I'm going to basically tax you to do what you want to do. I'm never a fan of that, but Great Western Trail was so good, I would be willing to live with it if the games were faster. That's where El Paso comes in, because this is the latest take on the system where you'll notice, oh, the board is much smaller because this game is much faster. Apparently, this is Great Western Trail Express. We're still trying to drive them doggies to, I don't know, Salt Lake City, or no, El Paso this time. This is where we're going, to El Paso, so we can put them on trains and make our fortune. But the board is much faster. We're still putting buildings out there. We're still trying to choose multiple paths on this cool, dynamically generated rondelle, but it plays, I believe they promise, it plays in like half the time. And yeah, if you give me a Great Western Trail that plays in half the time, I'll live with the slight passive aggressiveness of it because the design is brilliant. So I am very, very excited. I mean, Alexander Pfister is my second favorite designer of all time. So, and whenever he comes out with something new, that's great news for me. And, it promises the same deck building and all the rest of it. And honestly, the Great Western Trails, the original one, and then Argentina, and then New Zealand, they got better and better after. So I'm expecting this is going to be the best one yet, because this is Alexander taking all the lessons he's learned from putting all those other ones together and then giving us an express one. Yeah, very exciting. Number 4, most anticipated game, Great Western Trail El Paso. But not as exciting as Stefan Feld coming back again for Valencia. This is his other Stefan Feld city game coming out, and this I'm so stoked for. It is a remake of Strasbourg. Strasbourg, which I have covered. I believe I am still the only channel in all of board game media that has covered every single Stefan Feld game in history. Including It Happens and the soccer one that nobody else has played. And, so I've got to cover it just because I got to keep my averages up. But Strasbourg is one of his best. But unfortunately, it was never one I kept because it was a 3-player minimum game. It was an absolutely brilliant Stefan Feld take on auctions, where the game was basically a whole bunch of auctions going on at once. Set in the city of Strasbourg, now changed to the city of Valencia. Why am I excited then? Because Stefan Feld has revisited it and come up with new rules for 2 players. He's using a neutral player so that we still have all the depth and excitement of the rich auctioning of Strasbourg without compromise. I mean, I have seen other great neutral player auction games over the years. They can work phenomenally. And with Stefan Feld behind it, I'm sure this is going to work phenomenally. Plus it adds, and this is a really big deal, art from the Miko. I know not everybody's been a fan of the art on these new games from the Stefan Feld City series. Well, now Queen has gone out and got my favorite board game artist of all time. What's next? Vincent Dutray for the next one? I don't know, but I'm very excited to finally be able to enjoy Strasbourg with my wife Jen without having to invite other people to our table. Yes, Valencia, number 3. Then we've got number 2, Vantage. Cooperatively explore an entire planet's open world from a first-person perspective, from designer Jamie Stegmaier, publisher Stonemaier Games. Folks, for the longest time, I thought this was going to be my number 1 most anticipated. Because, Jamie is one of my favorite designers by far. And there's lots of great things that he puts out through Stonemaier, but when he sits down to the table, he always produces magic for me and Jen. And a science fiction open world exploration game, yeah, I don't know why, but I kind of have vibes of Charterstone, which I know is not everybody's favorite, but it's my wife's. So when I say Honey Pie, this is an open world exploration game. Oh, with secrets, by the way. Secrets! Don't want to spoil stuff. As we explore the world, it's going to have great production values. It's going to have great gameplay. My wife is going to love it to pieces. I am going to love it to pieces. And it's cooperative. Again, 2025, I'm calling it right now, is the year of the co-op. Co-ops are making a comeback, and my number 2 most anticipated, even though I don't know much about it. Alrighty, but yeah, there's just not much news, but I imagine we'll be finding out news for it pretty soon in the new year, and I can't wait to get my hands on number 2, Vantage. But folks, what could possibly beat that? Number 1, Coming of Age. From my 3rd favorite designer in the world. Yes, Danny, you've officially, Feld is number 1, Pfister's number 2, Danny Garcia is my 3rd favorite designer in all of board gamedom. And, after last year's Windmill Valley, how could I not? That was my number 3 highest ranked game, his best game to date, until Coming of Age, I'm sure, from publisher Ludonova. This is Danny doing all of his amazing Euro-style game design in probably my favorite of all board game subject matters. Story of life, telling a game that has you live a life well lived, like Pursuit of Happiness, or oh man, I played every single one of them, and they're always awesome. What was the most recent one I played that I really liked? I think it was from WizKids, and I kept it. Anyway, CV. I mean, there's a bunch of them out there. I'm always entranced by these games that are just an ode to life well lived, making choices to be a well-rounded, fulfilled human being. This one, we start as a child with a limited set of interests and skills. During the time, our parents will help us be important. They'll be important to our progress, but we'll grow, acquire interests, gain independence, access to experiences, journey through adolescence, form memories, shape different traits of your personality, make friends, fall in love, manage frustrations with goals, realizing, using dice management mechanisms at different locations in the city, acquiring experiences will modulate various aspects of personality reflected in your personality board with the goal of achieving a different life goals that you'll acquire during the game. Come on. It's like Danny Garcia said, hey, you know what? Rahdo's really liked my game so far. I'm going to design my next game specifically for him. And yeah, I love it. I love it to pieces. I love the art look. Very cool, nostalgic vibe. Seems like this one maybe doesn't go all the way into old age, which is fine. That is interesting. Oh, Adulthood from Brotherwise Games. That was the most recent one I played. Adulthood was phenomenal too. Made it in my top 20 of last year. Maybe it was my top 25. So anyway, the life-changing board game Coming of Age is by far my number one most anticipated game that I can talk about. Actually, there's one I'd love to tell you about. I've already gotten details about it. It's going to set the board game industry on fire. All I will say is the initials are FS. FS is actually my number one most anticipated, but since I can't talk about it publicly, it's under embargo. Just like last year at this time, I could not mention Star Trek Captain's Chair, which turned out to be a very big deal. And if you're wondering, hey, why didn't I mention Star Trek Captain's Chair? It's coming in 2025. Remember, folks, at the beginning I said I'm only talking about stuff I haven't played. Come back for the ramble in the middle of the month. And I will tell you where Star Trek's Captain's Chair ranks with the 38 other games of 2025 that I have already played, and talk about that and a whole bunch more stuff. But that is it, folks. Just an hour. Oh, that was pretty quick. Nice. I'm going to end as I started, wishing you and yours a very happy new year. As we move into 2025, as Jen and I maybe make some very big moves, time will tell. We will see. But that is it, folks. Thanks, as always, for watching. Have a very, very nice day. Talk to you later. So long. Bye-bye.